What is the future of museums? Museums have long been one of my favorite places to go. I'm an absolute museum addict. I've had museum memberships at the Met in New York, at the MoMA in New York, at the Pergamon Museum, and all the museums in Berlin, at the Uffizi. I've got a membership right now at the Barcelona Modernista Museum, which is the Art Nouveau Museum, and also the National Museum of Catalonia. I've had museum membership at the British Museum. So I'm really just a total museum freak. But what I see coming is that eventually museums will be replaced by virtual technology. I think they may still continue to exist in some form, but I think they will go the way that libraries are going. Although interestingly, museums are older than libraries, public libraries as far as I know, or roughly the same age. Museums are older than hospitals, they're older than police forces. So they're a very much established institution. But the thing is, at some point, virtual technology where we're able to like even view like a sculpture in 3D, like in totally believable 3D, or even see paintings like up close, even to like a molecular degree. You can imagine being able to inspect like a Van Gogh painting to see the brush strokes. That kind of technology will become readily available at some point in the future. And then how is that going to affect museums? I think it will be a good thing in some ways, because I think that museums have been hijacked by political interests or people with political agendas. And I think that it's the natural, it seems to be that we're witnessing the natural progression of an organic life of museums at present, in that the curatorial departments of museums have basically, I won't go into it further because I don't want to get into a political debate, but have been basically replaced by a different group of people whose interest is not in aesthetics. Their interest is not in beauty and art. Their interest is not in quality of art. Their only interest is in a political agenda, in advancing a political agenda. And I think that that's killed museums just outright, basically. For example, the Tate Modern in London, and the MoMA has also gone the same direction, and the Whitney in New York City has also gone in a totally political direction. And I think that that's killed art. And the counter argument to that would be that art should be political. I've actually read that, where people will say that art should be political. I don't think art needs to be political at all. I think art should be beautiful, you know. I think that's what the purpose of art is. And hence my proprietary art movement, Pulchrism, which advocates for beauty being the purpose of art. And I suppose, you know, that gets into the whole debate on art for art's sake, and that's fine. I'll do that in another video. But I personally believe that beauty is the purpose of art, and I don't think that politics really need to have anything to do with art. And then, you know, I think, what's that Delacroix painting, that large painting with the woman holding up the French flag after the French Revolution? I mean, that's the kind of image that comes to mind when you think of political painting. Or the Jacques-Louis David Death of Marat, or whatever it's called. And you know, the David painting is beautiful. I think all his paintings that I've seen are beautiful. The Delacroix one, I've seen it in person. I'm not really all that impressed with it. It's absolutely enormous. It's impressive in terms of its size and its magnitude and the subject matter, but just in terms of aesthetics, it's not great in my opinion. But the David one is great. But even if that Delacroix painting were a great painting aesthetically, the art that's being produced, the political art that's being produced now in 2017, has nothing in common with that Delacroix painting. Nothing, except maybe a bare-breasted woman that could be compared to a bare-breasted performance artist. That's it. The art nowadays that is being foisted upon the public, and it's a paying public, especially like at places like the Whitney Museum, where tickets are really expensive. I mean, I think it's like $25 to get into the Whitney Museum. And then you go into a museum like that and all you see is political stuff being shoved down your throat, or Damien Hirst's art on display, which is a whole other topic, or Jeff Koons, same thing. So what I'm thinking is that this natural organic arc, life arc that I mentioned before, is actually taking place with museums, where they had a burgeoning and explosively beautiful purpose at their inception with the Louvre around 1800, right? And the British Museum. They had a real purpose. There was no photography. The only kind of pictures that could be distributed were basically etchings, as far as I know, like in newspapers at that point. So people needed, I mean, it was a huge thing. And it was also kind of at the advent of maybe a sort of socialism where the elite wanted to be seen as benefactors to the public, to help the public, exalt the public out of their misery by showing them beautiful, high art. But I think what's happened is you can see where that arches sort of into the Impressionist era, where the Impressionists are like fighting it because the academic art industry, for lack of a better word, became so entrenched that it became sort of domineering, or even sort of totalitarian, right? And then you got the Impressionists fighting it, and then you have all the subsequent avant-garde movements completely fighting it. And now we've gotten to the point where the avant-garde movements have literally destroyed the museum. They achieved what they set out to do in the first place. I mean, that was the goal of the Impressionists, was to challenge the status quo, the authority, right? So after all these subsequent avant-garde movements, Impressionism, Art Nouveau was its own thing, but then Dadaism, Surrealism, Cubism before, all those isms in the 20th century with pop art and stuff like that, they did succeed at destroying the museum. And I think sort of postmodernism may have been like the last avant-garde, movement, or if that's what is considered. But now what do we have left? We just have garbage art. That's all it is. And a lot of it's like, they'll say the term art is subjective, which is an argument that's just been absolutely done to death on both sides. But what do we have left is just this little trash bags. I went to a museum in Oslo, a contemporary art museum, and there were literally trash bags on the floor. I mean, and that was the art. I did a blog post about it. And then you also have just things like, this cult of Marina Abramovich, where it's just basically usually women just like protesting with their bodies in these weird ways, and just like showing themselves off and effectively being just as narcissistic as like vapid people on Facebook. So what are we left with? What are we left with at museums now? Even museums like the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, which is still a great museum headed by a great director, Thomas Campbell, I might add. Even with the Met, they're starting to host, I get press releases from the Met and the MoMA and the Whitney and other museums. Even the Met is starting to host politically motivated, politically correct themed exhibitions. And that just really disturbs me, because it just makes me think, well, maybe museums are actually becoming purposeless. So let me know what you think. I'd like to hear from anybody who watches this video. I'd like to hear what you think about whether museums have a future, and if they do, what is that future? Please like and subscribe. Check out jessewaugh.com and click on the links below for more information about my work. Please also consider supporting my work at Patreon. The link is right there. Thanks.